Today we're going to make a sketchbook that you can both fit into your pocket or purse, and one that has two fronts. So let's first talk about materials. If you already made a tassel, we'll be using that for this project. If not, you can check out the video. I'll link it in the description below. And then, of course, one of the most important things that we want to figure out is what we're going to use for our cover material. If you have an old book and you'd like to use that cover, then you certainly can. I would just make sure that you peel off the coating on it so that whatever cover you put on it adheres a little bit better. I cut my book board down to about 6 inches by a little over 4 inches. You have another couple of options. If you have a bunch of binders laying around, you can peel off the plastic covers of that and use those covers from the binder. You can also use foam core or mat board. You could even use cardboard if you want. However, none of these things are going to hold up quite as well as the book board. It's just a little bit sturdier, but it's also heavier as well. So as far as adhesive goes, you could use PVA glue if you want it to last for a very long time. That will make it a little bit more archival, but today we're just going to go ahead and use regular Elmer's glue. It's something that everybody pretty much has laying around. You'll also use 2 pieces of matching fabric for the front and back cover, and then an alternating piece of fabric for the spine. You want the spine to be a little bit thicker or sturdier fabric, and it doesn't need to be as large, obviously. I cut mine to be about 3 inches wide, and that seemed to do the trick. I used a thin sliver of box board. It's only about 1/2 inch wide, and it's a little bit under 6 inches long. I also kept another scrap of box board on hand. This is going to help me smear the glue without getting my hand so dirty. I'm going to use a ruler, some scissors. I'll have some binder clips nearby, book headbands, a thick needle, preferably a book needle if you're really getting into it, book string and wax, and awl. Although sometimes I also just use a drill for this if I'm doing a lot of holes. A bone fold. You could also use a popsicle stick, that works well. And then you're going to want to have some paper of your choosing. I like to have decorative paper for the end sheets and some just regular old paper, sometimes computer paper, for the whatever you want for the inside sheets. Alright, so let's get started. First, I'm going to take my 2 pieces of matching fabric, and I'm going to take my book board and lay it in the center of the fabric. I want to measure about 1 inch around it, just to kind of give some space to pull it in. I did notice that my ruler happened to be 1 inch wide, so I could just kind of follow that along, but make sure that you measure if your ruler is thicker. After that, I'm going to go ahead and cut it to size so that it fits my book board perfectly. Here I am putting on some glue, and I'm using that scrap piece of box board to spread it. I want a thin, even layer. I don't want it to be too thick because then it's going to seep through the fabric, and it could cause some marks that way. So once I have that done, I'm going to wipe off the fabric to make sure that there's no pieces of lint stuck there, and I'm going to press the book board into the center. I'll flip it over and then wipe down the fabric to make sure that it adheres and then it's nice and tight to that. For the next side, I'm going to get a little bit fancy, and I'm going to go ahead and add a cutout to it. You certainly don't have to do this, but I thought I'd try it out. So since there are a bunch of diamond shapes on this piece of fabric, I'm going to go ahead and cut right into where one of the diamonds is. And then I'm going to do exactly how I did with the other. I'm going to spread the glue on, and I'm going to use my scrap piece of box board just to spread a thin layer over it. In this case, I do want to be careful where I'm placing it because I do want it to peek through one of those diamond shapes. I've spread the fabric evenly over the top to make sure that there are no wrinkles, and now I'm going to cut the corners to make sure that they're able to fold in. I am leaving about 1/4 of an inch away from where the bookboard is. That's going to help to make sure that I don't have any holes where the corners happen. Then similarly, I'm going to spread glue along the edges of the inside of the board, and I'm going to fold over the opposite sides first. I'm going to pull in to the center so that the fabric doesn't bunch, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the other sides. Once I've got all 4 edges in and glued down, I'm going to pull in the corners a little bit and then cut off any excess. I'm not going to cut out the center of the cutout just yet. I'll show you guys that a little bit later. I want the glue to dry first so that I'm not moving the fabric around at all. So here I am cleaning up the edges just a little bit more and then gluing them down and pushing them inward. After that, I'm going to set them aside on my Ziploc bag so that they don't stick at all to any of my surfaces. Once I've done that, I'm going to take my regular 8x10 paper and I'm going to cut it in half. If you have an awl, at this point you'll use it to create holes in your paper. I like to do 4 holes inch apart each and make sure that they're centered on the paper. These ones I've already created the holes, so I don't need to use the awl. I'm going to go ahead and take my book string and I will coat that in book wax. If you're one of my students, I've probably already done this for you. You basically just want it so that it's not slipping through the holes too hard, and the wax is going to also help strengthen it just a little bit as well. Now we're going to make the text block. That's just a fancy name for the grouping of pages. Make sure you pay close attention here. It's going to get a little bit tricky. At this point, I've let my book board dry with the fabric on it. It sat overnight and I'm ready to cut out the opening. So I'm just going to carefully cut that out in the center, leaving as much fabric as I can so that I have enough to peel back. And then I'm going to glue it on the opposite side as I peel it back. Now it's time to prepare the spine. So I'm going to go ahead and first glue down that skinny piece of book board that's just about 1/2 inch thick, and I'm going to get that set on there and put that square in the middle as much as I can possibly get it. Then I will start to load up the other sides with glue. I want to make sure that it goes all the way to the edge without going over. Now I will go ahead and put my 2 sides on. I want to make sure that the front and the back of the book are facing downward, so I'm seeing the inside of the book. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue the bottoms of the spine and the top of the spine into the inside of the book. And I'm going to use these binder clips just to hold them in place. It's probably a good idea, if you can, to let them sit overnight, just like you did the other parts of the book board. Now, this part can be a little bit tricky. I am going to actually put my tassel straight in the center of the spine. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want it to be long enough to extend on both sides, so that if I want to use it to bookmark my notes side, I can do that, but then I can also use it to bookmark my thumbnail side as well. So I'm going to go ahead and feed it through the center using the needle. I am going to need to use my awl a bit just to make the opening just slightly bigger. You can do this with a pencil as well if you don't have an awl, just to kind of pry that open a little bit more if you need just a little bit of extra space to get that, that tassel through. Once I have it in, I'm going to glue it in place, and then put a small piece of paper over top of it and glue that down just to help secure the end of it a little bit more. Now I'm going to start to put in my text block. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut triangles from the very front page and the very last page. I guess technically they're 2 front pages. And this is going to help it so that when I put decorative paper on top of it, none of the paper will show. So I'm going to secure it in place this way. Make sure that you're doing it as your book board is, or your book entirely is laying flat. That way you'll still be able to open it without tearing any pages. Once you have the first one in place, if it's still wet before you move on to the next one, go ahead and stick your Ziploc bag in between so that your pages don't end up sticking to the cover. That would be a crying shame. And then you can do the same with the other one. Next up, we are ready to put in the end sheets. The end sheets are the decorative sheets that cover that triangle. So we want to make it look nice. We don't want to show that ugly triangle there. So we are going to go ahead and smear the glue onto the book board over top of the triangle. And we want to get it not all the way to the edge, because the end sheet isn't going to go all the way to the edge. We just want to make sure that we're getting it to where the edges of the end sheet are going to go. And we're going to secure that down. Make sure that you rub over the paper and push it in just to make sure that you're getting good adhesion. You're going to do the same on the opposite side. Once again, if it's feeling pretty damp on that side, you want to stick your Ziploc bag in between. So while that dries, I've decided that I'm going to do a little bit more decoration on the covers, both front covers. I've decided that the thumbnails, because thumbnails should be creative, I want that one to be a little bit more chaotic. And the one for notes, because they're a little bit more structured, I want that one to be a little bit more conservative. So I started working on that and then set that aside so that both the inside could dry and the outsides. And then I started to paint some sheets that I'm going to glue in next to the end sheets. Basically, these are going to be the sheets that divide and tell us which side of the book is which. So the first one that I'm working on is the thumbnails one. You can see that once again, since I wanted it to be a little bit more chaotic, I have brushstrokes going in all different ways, whereas for the notes side, I just did an even gradient from top to bottom, where it was brighter at the top and then faded out at the bottom. So here comes the fun part where I'm going to label which one is the thumbnail side and which one is the note side. And the goal here is to find something that is not typically used for art. So I went on a little scavenger hunt and I found quite a bit of things that I could use. I thought about using some nail polish, however, it was dried out, so I didn't end up using that in the end. I did, however, use the bandaging that's self-adhesive, it sticks to itself, and that seemed to go over pretty well. I got a toilet paper roll, but didn't end up using the cardboard from that, and I got a bunch of stuff that were collage materials from magazines and whatnot. So first I started out by gluing down some saran wrap so that that would have a shiny texture. And then I think my favorite thing that I ended up using was actual tissues. That ended up being pretty cool. It left a really cool texture behind. And then I started with some of my collage materials. In one of my magazines, I found some thumbnails that were already sketched, so it seemed appropriate to add those to the thumbnails page. And then I figured a light bulb made sense because thumbnails are ideas. And of course, I need to have a label so I know which side is which. For the notes side, I wanted to be a little bit more structured. I did have this basket texture that I wanted to use to write out the letters. So I went ahead and used the self-adhesive bandage strips to try to duplicate that basket weaving kind of feature. And then the rest of this portion was mostly collaging. A big issue that I had was then trying to, once I pasted them in to that front page, trying to tie it into the end sheets that I put in. So here's what I ended up doing. I carried the color on the thumbnails from one side to the other, and I also carried that tissue paper texture along with using some of the individual strings from embroidery floss. I felt like some of those sketches needed to be carried on, so that same page that I took those thumbnails from had some empty space on it, so I just drew basically the same kind of sketch on there very quickly so it could be carried on to the other side. And I used the same die cut on the edges as well. For the notes side, initially I was really unhappy with it, and this just goes to show you that you really do have to keep going. So many times I've seen students just give up and stop what they're doing and throw away and start new. I think the magic word here is yet. If you don't like what you're working on, keep on going. You maybe just don't like it yet. So I would say that there's probably some stuff that I'd still like to do to this one, but I kind of like it now. I like it a whole lot better. So I carried the same gradient. I just switched it where it was darker at the bottom and lighter at the top. I was really hoping that the gold tape that I put on the other side would pick up the texture on the paper, but sadly it didn't, so I didn't go too far with that. I just kind of outlined some of the flowers that were there, and then I kind of, the gal on the couch that was working, I wanted her to look like she might be working, but she's still enjoying herself, so I put her couch on a little cloud and then decided to carry those over onto the tree and used that bandaging tape once again to create the tree, which actually serves as a really wonderful texture for that. So overall, this one isn't my all-time favorite page, but I do like how they reflect each other. And I'll probably continue to work on it a little bit more in the future and see what I can do to tie them together just a little bit more. All right, I hope you guys liked this, and I can't wait to see what creative ideas you guys come up with.